Hola, mi nombre es Clara, soy de los Estados Unidos, soy doctora en psicología y en este momento llevo 3 años aprendiendo español. Me encanta conocer nuevas culturas y compartir experiencias e historias entre la comunidad de YouTube. Hoy vamos a hablar de cómo vivir en Perú me ayudó a mejorar mi fluidez en español. ¿Listo? Ya. So, as you may know, there is a lot of debate about whether or not living or visiting a Spanish speaking country actually can help improve your fluency. In this video, I want to talk to you about 5 specific ways in which living in Peru actually helped to skyrocket my fluency. And at the very end of the video, I'll share with you how I think these specific concepts can help to improve your Spanish speaking skills and your fluency over time. But before we get started, you should know that Peru has many, many different accents. So in this video, I'll be focusing specifically on Lima, Peru, which is the capital of Peru. And it's the only place in Peru that I have lived over an extended period of time. I also want to emphasize that this video will focus on what Peruvians actually did to help me to improve my Spanish fluency over time. So let's jump right into reason number 1. The first reason why my Spanish fluency improved so much in Peru is that Peruvians speak clearly, slowly, and grammatically correctly. So it's pretty well known that Peruvians have a reputation in other Spanish-speaking countries for speaking very clearly. In fact, when one of my Mexican friends heard I was moving to Peru, he told me that Peruvians always use the palabra ya, and they speak like they're about to ask you for a favor. So they slowly choose their words over time and they speak very carefully. Although he was making a joke, my experience has been very similar in that you can count on Peruvians, especially in Lima, to speak slowly, clearly, and grammatically correctly. Now, this is very important if you're trying to improve your Spanish speaking skills or your Spanish fluency, because although I think that every single Spanish accent is valuable, it is important when you're first learning the language to have strong grammar skills. So this is one thing that has truly helped me to improve my Spanish fluency in Peru. The second reason why my Spanish fluency increased in Peru is that Peruvians tend to invite you to spend time with their friends and with their families. So you have an opportunity to learn Peruvian slang as well as when you should use this slang to sound more natural. You also have the opportunity to understand when you better not use certain words or you will risk offending somebody or being in a bad situation. I think that this is really important because learning Spanish out of a textbook while sitting in the US means that you don't have an opportunity to learn Spanish in context or how specific cultural histories and variations have influenced language and slang over time, which makes it harder to eventually speak more fluently or more like a native speaker. The third reason why my Spanish fluency has improved in Peru is that Peruvians don't automatically start speaking English with you as soon as they find out you're from the USA or they hear your horrible gringo accent. For example, if you walk into a restaurant and you try to order a drink and no one understands what you're saying, they're still going to hit you with a response that's 100% in Spanish. This is an important distinction from my experiences in other countries because many people who have traveled or even tried to practice their Spanish in the US know that when native speakers hear a really bad Spanish accent, they will automatically try to respond to you in English, and this can be very discouraging for many Spanish learners. One of the things that has really helped me to improve my Spanish fluency in Peru is what I call the Peruvian insistence to speak Spanish. The Peruvian insistence to speak Spanish has really forced me to use my Spanish to be able to survive in Peru. I learned pretty early on that no one was going to switch to speaking English just for me, and that meant that I needed to use the Spanish that I knew as well as improve over time. And with these experiences, I became more and more fluent in Peru each day. The fourth reason why my Spanish fluency improved so much in Peru is that Peruvians have no problem correcting your mistakes. Now, this is something that actually surprised me in the beginning because I was not expecting it. A really good example of this is I always have a brief conversation with a security guard at my apartment complex. And of course, all of these conversations are 100% in Spanish. Over time, after having these frequent conversations with him, I noticed that any time that I would make a mistake in Spanish, he would repeat the sentence that I messed up, but he would repeat it correctly. And then I would repeat the sentence and learn how to not make the same mistake again. So if you're living in a place where you're having these types of interactions on a day-to-day basis, it's going to be very hard not to become more fluent in Spanish. And this has helped me tremendously. I think you can chalk it up to Peru being a place where people really know their Spanish. And if you're hanging around them, then they want you to know how to speak Spanish too. And that has been a huge benefit for me. So I saved the most important and most profound example for last. And that is Peruvians will say specific things that will accidentally boost your Spanish confidence. I will never forget that when I went to an archaeological site to do a tour in Lima, I introduced myself in Spanish, and the woman working at the desk asked me to sign in and write down what part of Peru I was from. So I looked at her and I said in Spanish, "I'm from the United States." And she said, "No, no, no. We need to know where you are from in Peru, not where you live right now, because all Peruvians are entitled to a discount when they come here." And I said to her, "Oh no, I was actually born and raised in the United States, so I don't qualify for the discount." So she had no idea that I was thinking to myself during this interaction that I can't believe how nervous I was to come here to this particular museum and have to speak 100% in Spanish. Any of you who have studied any language know that building confidence in speaking a specific language is very hard to do. But once you build your confidence to speak, it's going to be very hard to stop you from reaching fluency. And that's what happened to me that day. I used that confidence boost to go everywhere and start talking to people. I talked to people at the grocery store. I talked to people at the beach. I talked to people at the mall. I talked my Uber driver to death. I talked to people on the bus. And over time, I found that this boost in confidence that I got from this really nice lady skyrocketed my fluency to the next level. So if you are interested in learning Spanish or any language in 2025, I would 100% recommend that you travel to increase your fluency. But if you cannot travel, here are 5 specific things that I would recommend that I think will truly increase your fluency. The first thing that I recommend that you do is find a specific accent that you would like to imitate. This is really important because Spanish has so many different accents. And if you try to learn Spanish from all parts of the world at the same time, it's easier to get confused. So try to choose one specific accent to imitate and to learn. The second thing that I would recommend you do if you cannot travel is find a group of friends or find a teacher who would be willing to correct your mistakes on a consistent basis. This is something that's really important when you're trying to reach fluency because there is a big difference between speaking Spanish and speaking Spanish fluently. Speaking Spanish fluently requires that you understand when you make mistakes and that you're able to correct those mistakes. The third thing that I would highly recommend is that you listen and speak Spanish in context and learn some slang words that will allow you to sound more natural and more like a native speaker over time. This has been a really important part of my language learning journey, and I would highly recommend that you do the same. The fourth thing is don't fall into the trap of practicing with people who only speak to you in English. Believe you me, that person is not helping your Spanish fluency. You need to meet and talk with people who will speak with you 100% in Spanish and not use any English. This is a very important step, and I hope that you will follow this one, even if you can't follow any of the other steps. The fifth thing is to try to surround yourself with people who are going to be positive about your Spanish speaking journey. Try not to practice with people who will laugh when you pronounce something wrong, or who will constantly point out your gringo accent. That's not going to help you reach fluency. In fact, it's going to discourage you over time and you're more likely to quit. So find a positive circle of people who will always encourage you to continue on your journey towards fluency. If you apply all of these 5 strategies, I believe that you can learn and speak Spanish fluently no matter where you are in the world. So that's all I have for you today. If you're interested in listening to a real Spanish conversation, I recommend that you check out this video on my channel. And before you leave, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you next week in my next video. Bye-bye.